Hello everyone, welcome to our series, The Lightbulb Sessions. The Great British Entrepreneur Awards, in association with BT Skills for Tomorrow, have designed a free live stream series of Lightbulb sessions to support small businesses and entrepreneurs with insightful and advice-driven sessions featuring some of the UK's brilliant entrepreneurial minds to illuminate your path to entrepreneurial success. You can find out more about BT Skills for Tomorrow by heading to their website at www.bt.com/skills for tomorrow or by clicking on the link in the comment section. In today's session, Great British Entrepreneur Awards Head of Content Jonathan Davies will speak with entrepreneur and startup and scale-up advisor Kate Methuen-Ley. Kate will talk through things to consider and the benefits of not being the expert in everything in your business. This will assist with scaling effectively and knowing when, what, and how to outsource the tasks that aren't the best use of your time. There is an opportunity to ask questions during this session. If you have a question you'd like to ask Kate, you can pop this in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer these throughout the session. And with that, I'll pass over to our host today, Jonathan Davies.
Thanks, Chloe, and thanks, Kate, for joining us today, and welcome to everyone who's here. I guess I'll kind of dive right into it. And you know, when we think about this topic of growing your business and letting go of some of the kind of key processes that you take on as a founder when you start, I guess the kind of real crux of the reason for doing it is the business benefit. So why should a founder let go of some of the key areas, and so what are the business benefits, and what are the dangers if you don't?
Okay, that's a really good question. I think the most obvious question, really, the most obvious benefits, I think, is the time and headspace that frees you up as a founder or a CEO or a scale-up founder. You're not firefighting anymore. Well, instead of your firefighting and then delivering like daily operational deadlines or learning new skills. Often I get people saying, "No, I can't do that till I've learned how to do it." You're actually able to focus your time on really driving the business to the next level and doing what you do best. And I often say to founders, you know, your time is precious and you know the business better than anybody, so you have to free up your time to do that. Another benefit is bringing new perspectives to the business as well, whether you're outsourcing or bringing people in, whether it's new processes, new offerings, new perspectives on marketing, or whatever that is. Particularly when you're a sole leader. I was really lucky when I had my own business that I had a business partner, but as a sole leader, you'll always be doing all the doing, and you can miss seeing some of the obvious opportunities or improvements that can save you time or money or speed up your growth. So you're getting that new perspective. Having people around you can rebalance your weaker areas. And those weaker areas might just be lack of time, not lack of knowledge, but it gives you that balance. So in terms of dangers, I think you can, as a founder, start to become a bottleneck as well. If everything has to go through you, you become a bottleneck to your own growth. And you know, if everything is waiting for you to actually make a decision on, then that is a danger, and you'll spend more time working on the business instead of in the business. That's a phrase we hear all the time. Working in the business and not on the business, meaning that you either build your business more slowly than you hoped for, or you don't have the headspace to really think objectively about where the business should be going. So you miss opportunities, and also from a personal point of view, you get leads to burnout and stress and things like that. So, and then another thing is, if you're doing it yourself and you're not getting other people's perspectives, you might build your business with less secure foundations. I'm a big advocate of putting the foundations and processes and operations in early doors, because it makes you more efficient and agile. But if you haven't got other perspectives on that, you might lack breadth in your knowledge to actually get them right first time. And I know that, you know, most founders, or not most, all founders are very capable people who can probably do a lot of things really well and most things okay. But at the end of the day, you can't be an expert in everything, and it'll hold your business back if you become this bottleneck of trying to be an expert in everything.
Yeah, and you touched on the kind of stress and burnout aspect of it. That was going to be my next question. Are you finding that more founders are waking up to that reason for doing this? So, you know, the business reasons are clear and evident, but are more founders waking up to the fact that if they don't do this, they are really going to suffer a really significant mental burden.
I don't think it's always obvious to people. I think people are more aware now. But when you have your own business and when you're a founder, you want to it's your baby. You're constantly working on the business. You're constantly thinking about it. You never stop thinking about it. It's a 24/7 job. So it's not always obvious, I don't think, to people. And often what I find with my clients is that it's taken an outsider like me to say to them, you're trying to do too much. You're spreading yourself too thinly. Because often what I hear from them, I'll talk to them and they're like, I don't have time to do that, or I've forgotten to do this, or I just see them completing tasks that aren't the best use of their time. And I'm almost the one that's prompting them, saying, why are you doing the bookkeeping? Why are you doing marketing? Why are you picking and packing? This is stuff you need to spend your time doing the right thing, not just something, because it will help you in the longer term to reduce that stress. But yeah, I think people are more aware now, but whether they're always listening to their own advice is debatable.
Yeah, and something that you mentioned there about that, the fact that it takes sometimes an outside party to make them realise that they should start to let go. Are there any trigger points that founders can be aware that it is time to start doing that? Is it a case of hitting a certain revenue threshold, or staff numbers, or like you said, forgetting to do certain tasks, things like that? How do you know when you're ready?
I think that's a tough question. It's not always tangible. And it's different for all businesses. Like I said, it's often been me or other people in their network saying to them, why are you doing that? Rather than there being a specific point. I think what I try and say to people, if they're kind of nodding but not listening to me, I say, right, let's try and assign some value to your time. So, for example, you might spend 4 hours a week doing bookkeeping, and so I've worked it out earlier, so that's 9 days a year. If you outsource the admin, it will cost you maybe £20 an hour, so £80 a week, just over 4k a year. What could you be doing as a founder with those 4 hours a week or 9 hours a year, 9 days a year? Could you be following up sales lead, developing a new product, developing new retail channels, sourcing investment? If whatever you can do in that spare time is going to bring you more revenue than it's costing you to fulfill that, then it's a no-brainer. Just do it, because it frees you up and it gives you a chance to work on the business. And I think often when you put it in financial terms, people or time terms, people are like, oh yeah, I didn't think of it like that. And we used to use it quite a lot in our business, where if we were trying to work on a new structure or justify why we needed an extra resource somewhere, we would just work out the maths on it. If we bring that resource in, it's going to cost us this, but if we can cover that cost, then it's a definite investment, not a cost. Because I always see this as an investment rather than a cost. And it opens up that space for you in your diary and in your mind to actually then work on the business. So it's hard to say. I would say that if you're turning over more than about 8k a month, then you really need to be thinking about outsourcing things. Or if you're having more than 50 transactions a week, you can't keep up with that, and it's costing your business more to spend your time doing that. So if you put an hourly rate on your time and think, right, I'm spending 4 hours a week doing that, well, my time's probably worth £50 an hour, £100 an hour, £1,000 an hour, whatever it is. Just think of it in those terms, because actually as you go from a founder to a CEO, you're going to be thinking a lot more in those terms anyway.
Yeah. Do you find that is quite a common reason or excuse to a certain extent as to why founders aren't doing it yet? That they say, I can't. I've got to do the bookkeeping because it's going to cost me X amount. Is that quite a common reason?
Yeah, very common, because you probably put your own money into this. You're managing your cash flow daily. you see it as a cost. But I always say to people it's an investment. I was doing a coaching session yesterday, and I had exactly that conversation, that it's a cost, and then also by the time I've worked out who can do it or outsource it, I might as well have done it myself. That's false economy. It's definitely a false economy.
Yeah, and obviously we mentioned bookkeeping just then. Is there a kind of playbook for the type of tasks that should be delegated? Which one should you get rid of first, or is it kind of a case by case, business by business, founder by founder aspect?
It's definitely there is some obvious ones like admin, finance admin, marketing admin, any kind of admin, due diligence stuff. I'm always a bit wary of things like health and safety. I don't want to be responsible for that. So it's definitely specific to the company and the founder. But even if you are a qualified accountant, is it the best use of your time to be doing the accounts? Even if you are a qualified HR professional, is it the best use of your time? We recruited in our business a general assistant straight away before we'd even opened any of our stores, who could support us with the admin, and she won't mind me saying this, the general dog's body tasks that me and my business partner were more than capable of doing, but it was not the best use of our time to be doing that, and we just needed to have somebody that we could trust to do it for us. And we outsourced our HR and accounting, because both those things can be really admin heavy and really tricky if you get them wrong. And we weren't we were quite qualified in those areas, but we were growing the business, and we needed to be agile, and it was much more agile that those areas were dealt with by experts than if we tried to muddle our way through it, because I'm sure we could have done what we needed to do, but we weren't focusing then on growing the business.
Yes.
There's other admin as well, things like if you're an e-commerce business, don't do the admin and the picking and packing. It's nothing more frustrating than seeing founders picking and packing. I understand at this time of year you want to this is the kind of time of year that you would do it. I mean, we used to go to the shops and help with the orders at this time of year, but it should be as an extra resource, not as the only resource. It should be because you want to go and help and you have the time to help, not because you're the only person who can do it.
Yeah, so it sounds like the way to think of it is not what you can do, but what you should do. Yeah,
and what you should do and what you should be doing as the leader, as the founder of the business. Because I'm sure you're more than capable of doing all those things, but think about what is going to drive your business. That's what you should be doing.
Yeah. So once you've acknowledged that you do need to start letting go of parts of the business, how do you find the right people to take those on? Because obviously, particularly at early stage businesses, those hires, when you're giving away responsibility for bookkeeping, marketing, so on, it's really, really crucial to get those hires right. So how do you go about finding the right people for those roles?
It's definitely an art form, and believe me, I've made some mistakes over the years. I think what you have to be clear of right at the beginning is your own kind of company values and missions, statements and all those kind of things, because you're recruiting for attitude, really. You're recruiting for culture, and you don't want to unbalance that. But so be really clear what the role is, clear about the skills and the responsibilities, as much for you as the candidate, because when they come in, at least you know what's going to them and what's staying with you. Like I said, make sure you incorporate the cultures and values into the role description, and even if you need to create a person spec of the values and skills you want that person to encompass. So don't just go, oh, you're quite good, I'd like you to do something. Really think about what you need them to do. Try and design that. It'll always change and things are flexible, but if you haven't got a clear outcome from why you want that person in that, why you need that role in your business, then the person you're recruiting won't be the right person. And if you've never done recruitment before, maybe get some specialist support in, so get a HR consultancy to help you, or a recruitment company, particularly for like really senior roles. obviously that depends on budget, and get recommendations from your peers, because there are some rogues out there, and we came across some rogues in our time as well, in terms of, you know, people who are advising us. But if your budget doesn't stretch to those kind of external support, then there's bound to be people in your network who will be more than happy to sit in an interview with you and give you another perspective on a candidate. So I think, yeah, you know, it's making sure you know what you're looking for in terms of culture, attitude, and the role itself. And when that person comes in, making sure that they know the outcomes that you're expecting from them. And also, actually, do you actually need somebody in-house, or can you outsource it? So like I said, we outsource HR and accounts at different points in our growth cycle. So sometimes we had it in-house, sometimes we had it outsourced, depending on where we were in our growth cycle, what our budgets were like, how much we needed specialist help and things like that. So, you know, think about, you know, is it right to recruit somebody, or can it be outsourced? Another watch out I would say is that once you get to CV and recruitment stage and you're doing the interviewing, etc., don't employ the best of a bad bunch. So if you haven't got the right candidates in your kind of bundle of people you want to see, don't recruit for the sake of it, because you think, oh well, that's off my to-do list now, because it'll just cause you more strife and more time and more expense in the long run. If you're not seeing the candidates you want to see coming through, go back to the drawing board, really look at your job description that you've put out there and the advert that you've put out there. Look at your budgets and the timing. The timing might not be right from a candidate point of view. They might not see where the business is going yet because you haven't hit some of your milestones. Go back to the drawing board. Don't just hire for the sake of it. And if you do happen to hire for a dud, don't carry that person. You know, make a very swift decision on that. As soon as you realise it's not working, make a quick decision on it, because again, it'll cost you. It'll save you more time and hassle in the long run. And don't get me wrong, everybody, when they get into a new role, it takes a few weeks, but you can tell in your heart of hearts if that person's really right for the role. So don't carry them, move on if you need to. Sorry, that was a lot of advice in a very short amount of time.
No, great advice. You mentioned hiring versus outsourcing there. Are there any kind of key indicators that kind of lead you down one direction or another?
I think for us, it was certainly in the early stages when you know you don't need somebody full time, and particularly with finance, you know, you need qualified accountants to do things, etc. Then it's much more cost effective to outsource that, because you're getting a service. The onus is on them. You're getting a service. So I think if you don't need a full-time person in that role, then outsource it. And also, you know, it can depend on, like you said, the quality of candidates that are out there as well. If you can't find the right candidate because you don't have the budget for the right salary, or just the right candidate's not there at the moment, then that's another time to outsource.
Yeah, and obviously once you do make the hire or outsource, how difficult is it to suddenly one day go from you know, from running every aspect of the business, having full control over everything? How difficult is it to go from that to trusting someone to take the responsibility away the next day?
It just depends on the kind of person you are, I think. I've always been a huge advocate of surrounding myself with people who can do it better than me, basically, and empowering them to do that job. But I know for some people it's quite intimidating, particularly, like you say, it's your own business, you've grown it from scratch, you know exactly how you like things done. So start maybe by handing over the tasks that aren't going to matter too much if they're done in a different way to how you would do them. You know, it won't materially affect the business if that process happens in a slightly different way. Because you're handing those things over to give you the space to grow, and just because it's not the way you would do it doesn't mean it's not the right way. You know, and you're recruiting these people to come in and add substance to your business, and you're recruiting them for the experience they've got and the skills that they've got. So there is nothing to say that they can't do it they won't come up with a better way of doing things. And, you know, if the values and culture are right in your business, they will want to strive to make everything as brilliant as possible for you. So, but that's the easiest way, I think, is to start by handing over those things that really aren't going to matter if they're not done exactly the same way that you do them. And then, like I said earlier, set expectations for that person or that role, and set outcomes for what you'd expect. So, you know, maybe you've got a process that's running that you might say to them, well, I want this process I want to be able to get this in on the 1st of every month instead of the 8th of every month. You know, give them some outcomes and expectations, and give them some ownership to try and to help you. I think as a CEO, or as a, you know, when you go to that next stage up, you've got to think of yourself as a conductor of an orchestra, where you know how all the parts fit together and how to guide them, but you don't play all the instruments yourself. And I stole that from when I worked at Mars years ago. We used to talk about being a conductor rather than the orchestra. You cannot play every instrument yourself, but you absolutely know where the piece of music's going and how all those bits fit together.
Yeah, that's a really great analogy, and actually leads me on to my next point really well. Obviously, not everyone is a natural leader. How difficult is the transition from founder who is just running everything to CEO who, like you said, is leading everything?
It's not linear at all. It's not. I mean, I think for me, I'd spent 15, 20 years nearly in career jobs, moving my way up to being a leader. So I'd had lots of support, lots of training courses, and etc. And I'd seen people do it well, because you're moving from developing your product and building your business, building your brand, to actually trying to build a sustainable business that people's livelihoods rely on. So your focus becomes much more on stakeholder management and deliverables, strategy, culture, rather than the doing. And you know, even if you love doing the doing, you've got to make that transition over to being the responsible person in that relationship, as it were. And by letting go of some of the day-to-day stuff, I think is helps improve your efficiency, but also helps improve your communication skills. So as you start adding more and more resource into the business, or outsourcing resource, because you still need to communicate with the people you outsource to, think about, you know, building your communication skills, looking at things that can help you support that, and also think about some of the great CEOs or leaders or managers that you've worked for, not the textbook ones, but the ones that you've worked for, and the bad ones you've worked for, and sit down one day and put on a piece of paper what you liked about them, what you didn't like about them, and try and work out what kind of leader you want to be. And I learned that I had a really great boss back about 15 years ago, maybe longer, who I just wanted to be like him when I became a leader. He had empathy, he had integrity, he was a great communicator, he empowered us, and those were all skills that I felt were really key to being a good leader. And you know, I've tried to always make sure I lead like that. So, you know, look at people that are around you. If you can, get a coach or a mentor. If you don't have the budget for that, if it's a cost implication, then there are some great books and podcasts out there. But just don't overthink it. You know, as long as the way you lead matches the way that the values you want to come across in your business, then I think it becomes quite natural.
Yeah, and I was going to say, is this a good time to almost work on yourself as much as working on the business in terms of becoming a leader? Yeah,
and you know, I spent a lot of time working on emotional intelligence, and you know, and I definitely it is because you're actually learning new skill sets. Stakeholder management, although you will have done stakeholder management as part of starting your business, stakeholder management and managing expectations is much different to just doing it yourself. So yeah, this is the time to give you space to work on your personal development, definitely.
Yeah, and in terms of developing the processes and systems, that you want to put in place as you're scaling the business. Do you think that that's something that the founder should take the lead on in preparation for bringing in new people or outsourcing, or do you think it should be hire the person, you are the expert, you develop the systems that we need?
I think when you're bringing people in to help you take things off your desk that you've already been doing, there will probably be already a process or a system in place, even if it's in your head. Get that process or system written down, even if it's just a 5-step process, whatever, because then that gives the person coming in the chance to unpick it, improve it. Yeah, I think documenting that for the transition period is really important to make that transition easier for you as well as the person coming in. But don't be afraid to let the people coming in refine those processes, because they'll be living with them day in, day out, and that will be kind of their sole responsibility. And like I said, it goes back to this outcome thing, give them an outcome and let them find the route there. It doesn't have to be your route there. So yes, I would say you've probably already got those processes in your head, document them, but then don't be afraid to learn from the people that are coming in.
Yeah, so I guess it comes back to the aspect of trust when you are bringing someone in or outsourcing. Then
yeah. I mean, trust is really, really important, and it's like I said earlier. Getting that trust in place is about communicating, I think, and being very clear about what you want and what you're expecting from your team and from your business as well, I think. So again, some people don't trust very easily. I'm quite a trustworthy person. Until you prove me wrong, I'll trust you, because you've been through a recruitment process. You've got a feel for that person. If you've got your values and your recruitment process and your person spec in place and well thought through, you've probably averted a lot of the risk of recruiting. And so actually getting that trust in place is a lot easier then. But one thing I would say is that don't flip-flop on decisions. That's something that can break trust a little bit. I've seen it with leaders before, where you'll make a decision, everybody knows what they're doing, everyone starts doing it, and then they'll sleep on it and they'll come in and decide they've changed their mind. And what then happens is your team will start reflecting that back to you, and they'll start doing the same thing, and then the trust starts to break down, and people aren't as kind of involved. But I think your team will want to know the same things that you want to know. They want to know where the business is going, when it's going to get there, and how it's going to get there, and that's exactly what you want to know. Don't hold that back from them. Talk to them about it, and if you don't actually know the answers to that, get them to help you find them. That will really help you build that trust in the business.
Yeah, and on the subject of teams and staff and the workforce, founders are suddenly kind of accountable to a lot more people when they do let go and take a step back. How do you cope with going from answering to no one, being in charge of everything, to suddenly being accountable to, in some cases, depending on the size of your business, teams of people?
Yeah, it's quite interesting actually, because I think we underestimate how much founders are already accountable to a lot of people before they've got a team, whether it's the bank, whether it's their suppliers, whether it's their family. They are accountable. I think they don't realise how accountable they are. And a good founder will have created a network of peers around them who will informally or formally hold them to account as well, and tell them when they're being ridiculous, and tell them when they're doing well. But I can see what you're saying. At the end of the day, it was originally their decision, and now they've got to bear in mind everyone else's opinions. Like I said, I think generally teams or stakeholders just want to know the same things that you want to know. So don't hold back. Be honest. Really work on your communication skills. Make decisive decisions as well. I think that helps you to be more accountable. But in terms of your mindset, you definitely need to change your mindset. You can't be arm deep in invoices and production lines anymore, or writing your MailChimps or whatever. You know, you need to be able to take a holistic view of the business, take into account of other views, and weigh them up as well. You know, don't micromanage. Be curious about what these stakeholders in your business can bring to your business. But I think if you put your operational foundations in place and your values and culture in place, I think it becomes a lot easier for you to be accountable. And like I said, you know, think of yourself as this conductor rather than the flute player. You know, you're the person who should know where the business is going and how it's going to get there.
Yeah, and again on people and staff. Now that a founder is starting to let go of business, hire more people, hire teams of people, and really grow the business into the next phase, is this the time that they should start to think beyond kind of purely financial decisions and the bottom line? And is this the time that they should really start investing in staff and personal development and culture and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of staff and staff development and personal development, you should always be investing in that. And investing in that can just be time. You don't need money necessarily. You know, what is it? Is it Richard Branson that says, train people well enough so they can leave, and treat them well enough so they can stay? You know, like I said earlier, I've never been afraid of employing people who are better than me or coaching people to be better than me, because that really kind of adds value and depth to your business. So I think you should always be investing in yourself and your team in terms of personal development. But in terms of building the business, I think just be aware of the growth you want versus the growth you expect. So I've seen people who are like, right, we're going to be doing X million turnover, we need all these teams to do it, and they put all these people in place, but they haven't gone along the steps to get there. And then they're like, oh, well, we're hemorrhaging money because we've got all this staff, but nothing's being delivered. And I think you just got to be very mindful of and realistic about what growth you need to expect right now. There's no harm in having that growth you want, but you need to do it in steps to get there. I've also seen people who want to recruit all the senior level in first. And they're like, right, we're going to spend all these thousands of pounds on getting all the senior management in. But these are the strategic thinkers. If they haven't got anybody, if you can't afford to put anybody below them to actually do the doing, then again, you're hemorrhaging money, or you are demotivating that strategic team that you've put in place. And you've got very experienced people sat there with no resources to deliver the wealth of their experience. So just being mindful of where you're at in your life cycle, where you're at in your trajectory, and then recruiting or designing your team to reflect that and where you want to be. Always just be thinking about that little step forward. So, you know, I'm always very much invest. It's an investment, not a cost, but it is a cost if you just put all the senior level in first, or you put in hundreds of people and then you haven't got the sales leads, or you haven't got what you need to deliver that growth. Always take yourself that little bit ahead of where you need to be at that moment in time, rather than taking yourself right the way to year 5 in year 1. Yeah,
so by the sounds of it, in terms of the levels that you need to bring in, it's about finding a balance between the senior thinkers and the kind of lower level doers.
Yeah, exactly. And also when you're recruiting, recruit the lower level doers to be the kind of people who will be your thinkers later on. But just be mindful of how much resource you need. You will need resource. I guarantee you will need resource, because you can't do it all yourself. You've got to spend time doing the right thing, not just something, but just, and even if you need somebody like me to come and look and go, okay, maybe just scale that one back, or push that role into 6 months' time rather than right now, get an outside view on it.
Yeah, and are you seeing more and more founders open to coaches, mentors, advisors to kind of lead them through these type of processes?
Yeah, I think we're certainly I'm based in Wales. I'm in Wales. We do have quite a big kind of network and of government support as well around coaching. So I think people are very open to coaching. It's talked about a lot more openly, and I think people see it now as a positive. And I think in the past people used to say, "Oh God, I need a coach," or that makes me a failure. It doesn't make you a failure. Actually, I think it's about your emotional intelligence. If you can recognize that to get you to the next level, you might need some outside support, then I think people see that much more as positive now than in the past. And there's certainly a lot more people asking for support now than I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've just got about just under 10 minutes left. Obviously, we all know what we've been through this year. Do you think that there's a danger that the pandemic will almost reverse this concept of letting go, where particularly for micro businesses, they might have had to furlough most, if not all, of their staff? They'll have had to take on things that they previously let go of. Is there a worry that they'll kind of get used to that again? And how difficult of a process is it to kind of go through it again?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm seeing people actually more open to outsourcing or finding specialists now. I think what the pandemic has done has allowed people to really reflect on their business and reflect on the things that they can and can't do efficiently and effectively. Don't get me wrong, there's still people out there who are like, oh no, we need to keep it in-house, we can't afford to. It's a cost, not an investment. But I certainly think that people are very, very open to finding new and innovative ways of growing their business going forward, because they don't want to be in the same position they were in again this year. So it's a tough one, a really tough question, actually. I think there'll be two camps. There'll be people who, and it will be difficult to get them out of that mindset again, definitely. But I think if the supporters around them can keep saying the same thing, do the right thing, not just something, and you've got to work on the business, not in the business, then hopefully they'll see the benefits of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had a couple of questions come in, and one from Mark Patterson, which touched on something that we were just talking about. How do you find the best or most appropriate coaches or mentors for you and your business?
Recommendations, I think. There is some mentors and coaches who are very generalist. There are some who are very specialist. So have a think about what you need help with, or what you feel you need support. And if it's quite generalist, don't be afraid to go to quite a generalist coach to start with. But then don't be afraid to say, right, okay, I think I've got where I need to with this coach, and then find a mentor or coach that can help you plug a gap. My experience is much more around operations and running the business, whereas there are other coaches out there who are much more specialist in self-development and things like that. So I use your networks and see if people have referrals, etc. as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one comes from Hamish Light, who is saying that they might have found the right person to be in the business, but they don't necessarily want to be employed. They want to be involved in the business and want a share of the business. Have you got any advice on that area of almost letting go?
I think it's quite difficult to comment when I don't know the business and the role, etc. I think you need to be really very comfortable with that person, and if you're giving away equity, treat them like you would an investor. So do your due diligence on them like you would as an investor. I don't think there's any harm in it if they're going to help you really, really grow the business, but you need to be confident that they are going to put that time and effort into your business. They are going to be give you the right skills, experience, network that you need. And so treat them like you would an investor, and really, really look at what their motivations are.
Okay, excellent. And we've got one final question from Nathan McGill. who says that he thinks that a cultural fit is really, really important aspect of new hires or outsourced partners, especially in startups and early stage businesses. He's asking, how do you think we can go about getting that right whilst everyone is working from home? And once they're in, how do you kind of keep that cultural alignment going?
Quite interesting this. I've been doing some coaching about the cultural changes. I think when we're on Zoom, etc., it's very difficult to kind of gauge that relationship. I think making sure that the communication lines are there again, having a non-business chat, treating it a bit more like a date than a business chat, I think is really important when you can't actually get that feel for somebody face to face. But communication lines, definitely making sure that everybody is clear on objectives and outcomes will help you manage that relationship right now. In terms of getting a feel for somebody, try and have a personal conversation rather than just a business conversation. I do that quite a lot with my clients, mainly because I'm a bit nosy as well. I end up finding out a lot about them, but actually it really helps you get an understanding of what kind of values they'll bring to your business and what culture they'll bring to your business.
Okay, excellent. That's all the questions from the Q&A. So one final one from me. To wrap it up, what is the kind of single biggest factor that you think is most important in letting go to scale your business?
I would say the most important factor is having that confidence in yourself that you're making the right decisions about who you're giving the responsibility to. You are a good leader, a good founder. Don't underestimate how good you are at finding the people to work in your business.
Excellent, Kate. Thank you so much. It's been a really, really interesting 45 minutes. And I think there's a lot of really brilliant advice in there for all our attendees. So yeah, thank you for your time today. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today. And with that, I will pass back to Chloe.
Thank you.
That was an incredibly informative session. Thank you, John and Kate, for joining us today and sharing your expertise and knowledge. You can join our next Lightbulb session at the same time next Thursday, and we'll be joined by Pippa Murray, Joe Chidley and Gareth Jones as they discuss becoming a B Corp. You can register for this session by heading to our website or by clicking on the link in the comments section. If there is anything you'd like to catch up on from today's session, we'll be sending out a replay of this recording later on today. You can find the replay and future sessions at www.lightbulb-sessions.haysummit.com. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you again, Kate and Jonathan.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.